Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Force here, and today I'll be talking about Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. Mainly what I want to express is how this is probably the most uninteresting, boring introduction to a video game I have ever played. Now, with that bold statement laid out on the table, I also want to say this is not a review of Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. These aren't even my final impressions because I'm going to continue to play the game and try to give it a fair shot. The combat that the short amount of time that I've spent with the combat so far has actually seemed okay. And the game's got an interesting visual style as well that I sort of enjoy. But the introduction to this game is so boring, I almost didn't make it through it. And I know that I am not alone in these sentiments because I've seen other people say the same thing, that it was really tough for people to get through the beginning. If you haven't experienced this game, let me tell you how it goes. You start off pretty standard stuff. You make your character. You've got an introductory cutscene where it shows you fighting some mage dude. Forgive me, I don't know much about the Final Fantasy universe. Someone probably knows what that's all about. And then there's an intro scene of you on a boat making it into port. So the thing about this scene, this isn't my biggest gripe, but it was sort of weird because this is a sort of a motioned cutscene with character animation taking place, but all of the dialogue is through text, which in today's MMO world, when you see a cutscene like this, you expect voice acting. And I don't think maybe it is just a budget thing, but immediately after this 10-minute scene is a intro cutscene that has voice acting to it. So I was kind of confused as to why it was in some cutscenes, but not in the others. But anywho, the thing that really rubbed me the wrong way was like the first hour and a half is walking through a city talking to NPCs. Now, I expressed my frustration with this yesterday on Twitter, and even back when I played the open beta, I said the same thing. I said, this is so boring, this is so uninteresting. Even the worst MMOs that I've ever played at least get into some action and some combat within 10 to 15 minutes, but no. You have to talk to NPCs for a good 60 to 90 minutes before you even get the first taste of combat. And I also got some rebuttals from people saying, well, this has happened before in Final Fantasy games in the past. And again, I'm not much of a Final Fantasy guy. I'm coming into this more interested in the MMO aspect than having like a storied history with Final Fantasy, because that's just not me. That's nothing that I've really been super into in the past. And again, the combat that I've played so far has been pretty interesting, but this like 60 to 90 minute introduction, and some of it is tutorial stuff. Some of it I totally understand. You need to get your bearings with the game and the things that you need to do. I get that. But then I'd say that's probably about 50% of all this NPC talking. The other 50% is menial tasks, like I want you to go investigate these shopkeepers to check market prices. I want you to deliver this note to such and such a person. Like, there's a lot of just busy work thrown in here. And again, this isn't like, I just don't think it's properly balanced, and I think that's the thing that was the toughest for me to swallow. They front load so much NPC chatter and busy work without actually getting into the combat, which for a player like me, and it probably just does come down to taste, the combat part of video games, the actual gameplay, is the part that I am the most interested in. And if you would like to make the argument that this is, driving the story forward and they're focusing on the story more than the gameplay, I can understand that as well. I just think they could have balanced it a lot better. And I think that there are plenty of games who have balanced it a lot better. And again, I am not giving you my final thoughts on Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. I'm just giving you my first impressions with the beginning of the game. And I just think it was handled poorly, at least for a player of my tastes. And I know that there's other people out there because I've seen these sentiments echoed by not only people within the gaming industry, gaming journalists, but also just, regular old players, people who just play games, and people who have responded to my Twitter messages saying, yeah, I thought the beginning was really awful too. And some people literally, because the beginning was so uninteresting to them, stopped playing. And you can be super cynical and you can be good. We don't want those kind of players anyways. But come on. Look, if you really care about a game, then you should want there to be a bigger population, and I think that they could have just handled it better. If they had begun that introductory, 10 or 15 minutes getting your bearings, and then had some combat take place that could draw people in who are interested in the gameplay aspect of things, and then go back to introducing more mechanics. I mean, honestly, you don't need to introduce me to the shopkeepers before I make any combat. What am I buying before I even go out into the world anyways? Like, how is that necessary? It's just things like that. I just think some of the design decisions at the start of this title were poor. And I guess that's really all I wanted to convey. And it's really too bad because I've heard this game opens up and becomes really good. And I'm going to try to give it that shot. I'm going to trudge through this mind-numbingly boring beginning and try to give it a good shot. But it's unfortunate, and I just wanted to express my concern. All right, guys, I'm sure there's going to be a plenty heated and divisive conversation taking place in the comments, and I fully welcome it. And if you want to bash me for my opinions, that's fine as well. I just thought I would express, from my point of view as a gamer, how the introduction to this game was, and that is one of the most boring I've ever seen in a video game. But I'm gonna muscle on, and we'll see how the game opens up and see if it gets any better, and I'm hoping it does. I really do. There you go. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe, and as always, keep watching and keep owning.